Welcome to the Dad Code Podcast, where real dads come for real talk and no BS. We are your hosts, Blake Melton, Bradley Newberry, and Matthew Parker. What's going on, guys?
Nice rainy morning here in Tennessee. I believe he's captain the boat.
Yep, captain of the boat, Matthew Parker, joining us via phone today.
That is right. Raining down here, guys, but ready to talk some NFL.
Nice. That's what we do. Thank you guys for taking the time to hit play, download this episode of DDS. We're going to do the NFC and AFC North here today. We're going to start with the NFC North. Let's jump right in to the Chicago Bears. Last year, they were 8-8. Blake, do you have anything that you like about the makeup of this 8-8 stuck in the middle team in Chicago?
I mean, there's not a ton of things I like here. I mean, Justin Fields, obviously, I think he's a very likable player as a quarterback. He's got some grit to him. I think we saw that in his college days. I'm not sure that he's ready to be to take the reins of an NFL team, but I don't know that he's going to have a choice given the other quarterback that they're going to have in there, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Oh, all right. Parker, what you got for like?
I love Justin Fields. He's going to be the first Bears quarterback to throw for more than 4,000 yards in a season. The closest one to it's been Eric Kramer. After that, they're all Jay Cutler, then Mitch Trubisky, and Rex Grossman. The Bears have never had a true quarterback, and this guy's it. This guy's also electric fast. His 40-yard dash was a 4.44. Only quarterback quicker since 2006, RG3. He's also incredibly accurate. That usually translates from college to NFL. Last year, he was the sixth most accurate passer in all of college football. To put that in perspective, that's better than the number one pick, Trevor Lawrence.
Why do I always feel like I get the little drops here? Every single one. We're not talking about the AFC South yet. Hold your horses. No. We'll get there. But do you think old Jim McMahon would have something to say about your take about no quarterback in Chicago?
How about no quarterbacks in this modern passing era? Is that better?
Yeah, all right.
You pulled Jim McMahon out.
I did, with the shades. Hey, here's something I like. Wide receiver Allen Robinson. Last year he had 1,250 yards, 6 touchdowns. That was his second most productive year since 2015 when he led the Jaguars with 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, and his only Pro Bowl appearance, in large part due to Blake Bortles.
I love Allen Robinson, by the way. He's one of my favorite receivers in the entire league.
I mean, I like it. I think it sets up success for Justin Fields.
I do too.
It sets up success for the Big Red, potentially.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton,
man.
which let's transition into the dislikes. And Blake, you might have something to say here.
I mean, I think that what is likely to happen is they're going to ride this Andy Dalton train, and they're going to probably ride the Bears straight into a losing season again as a result. Until they are just absolutely forced to put Justin Fields in. I don't know what how short the leash is going to be there, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's, week 8, week 9 before they decide to pull the trigger as far as letting him go the whole way or starting. But I don't think it's a recipe for success for this year. I got him at 7 wins, guys.
What are your concerns? Go ahead.
Believe that he's going to get benched even quicker than that. I think Fields is either going to start on game 2 or game 4. Their schedule starts off against the Rams, and he is going to get just going to get crushed. And the reason I think they bring that quarterback in more quickly is because Matt Nagy sucks. His play calling is boring. I mean, it really is. Last year, anytime they trotted out Cordell Patterson, I wonder what they're going to do. It's just it's very predictable. So I think this new quarterback might buy him some more time, maybe. But I still don't think he'd last till the next season. I think he'll be fired. I believe they will be 7-10. and finish third in this division.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of just depends on when they pull the trigger on this, and even when they do, I'm just not. I mean, I don't think anybody expects Justin Fields to come in and, even if it is game 2, and win 10 games this year. So,
all right. So I'm going to go to my dislikes. I'm a defensive guy. Guess what? I don't like your defensive backfield. Listen to this, gentlemen. When Khalil Mack, yes, I said defensive lineman Khalil Mack is second on your team in interceptions with 1, that is a damn problem.
That's a good one.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, you're in a league where you're going to be up against the likes of Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have to face all that offensive craziness in Minnesota. I don't know what Detroit has, but I don't think this is the year for the Bears.
No.
We've copied notes again, apparently. I wrote down 7-10 for the Bears.
Yep.
Third.
I think that's what they're going to be.
Any final thoughts before we move on?
No. Nothing else.
They're just kind of one of those meh teams.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
We're moving on to Detroit. Pretty sure a team that we eliminated from this league.
Yeah, exactly.
Last year they went 5-11. I'll go ahead and start here. You know what? After doing some research, I read that I kind of like their offensive line. I don't know what they're protecting for. Maybe the hope of running back DeAndre Swift. Last year he had 521 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, an additional 357 receiving, and 2 more touchdowns receiving. But I guess that could be encouraging, right? A solid O-line.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing you mentioned there, DeAndre Swift, you see what I have written here for likes.
It's absolutely blank, folks.
I don't have anything written down here. I mean, I don't have much in the way of anything here for Detroit, just because I just don't think that they have much. There's not much there to like, in my opinion.
Let's go to our expert, Parker.
It is tough to find something to like, and you're right. They do have a top 10 offensive line, but they do have one player. I searched the roster. They got one player that I really do like, and it's a player that should be on the Titans. I can talk about that later, but it's their wide receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. This guy is awesome. He's a super physical receiver out of USC. He's already gotten fights at training camp.
Nice.
And I loved it, especially with this head coach that's coming out talking about biting kneecaps and all this stuff. I think he's going to fit in really well there. This receiving group is awful. I think this rookie could come out, lead the team in receptions other than their tight end. I'm just a huge fan of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Nice.
Yeah, you dug for that one.
I mean, I like the name.
Yeah, well.
What are your dislikes? Let's go to Blake's piece of paper here, because this is all he has written.
I'm going to tell you the first 3 words that I wrote.
All right.
Everything. Literally everything. Stafford's out. Kerryon Johnson out. Galladay out.
Hey,
Matt Prater out.
There's another receiver that went to the Jags, Marvin Jones Jr. out.
Yeah, well, he just went from one shit pile to another.
Oh, here's another drop on my team.
I love Marvin Jones.
Just a total disaster. This is a team. Wouldn't surprise me if they only won 2 games. Wouldn't surprise me if they won as many as 4. So I've got them at 3 wins this year, guys.
Much like Blake, my notes start off very similar. The very first word. Dislike everything. Golf is terrible. I know a lot of people like DeAndre Swift. I'm in the camp. I think he's overrated. He's got injury concerns. He gets concussions his first year. I just think they're terrible. Pretty much every reason that I listed in the episode of why they should be removed from the NFL, I can just copy and paste here. They're fighting for the 2022 first overall draft pick with one other team.
All right. Yeah. So I feel like my take on DeAndre Swift was met just like Miles Sanders out of Philadelphia.
I like it when we have opposite dislikes
I do
and
too.
likes. It just shows you how the league is just it's just so interesting and how you have a different
dynamic
view on one thing.
Yeah. So here we go. I'm going to go with my dislikes. I'm going straight to the defense again because I love defense. The Detroit Lions were dead last in points allowed at 32.4 points per game. They allowed 30-plus points in 10 out of 16 games last year.
That is brutal.
That is absolutely
oh my gosh.
horrible. Putrid. Why does the league continue to put this team on my TV at 11:30 when I'm trying to enjoy my turkey and dressing?
I think they're hoping that you're
asleep.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're trying to help you fall asleep from eating all the turkey and dressing.
Oh my God.
It's just further sleep fodder there.
The Detroit Lions have no roar. They're going 4-13.
Wow. Yeah,
I've got them at 3-14.
I got them at 3 wins.
Wow. All right. We're going to move on to Cheesehead Country. The land where only players come to play with the quarterback. They don't care about the city. They're coming here to play with me. The Green Bay Packers. Last year they were 13-3. Parker, what do you like about this team?
Well, they obviously have one of the best quarterbacks and wide receivers in the game. But I'm going to go with another player I believe to be maybe the best in the game at his position. And he's a different MVP for this team. A different Aaron Jones. In the last 2 years, this guy has 30 touchdowns. And that's with Jamal Williams eating into his snaps, catching touchdowns. That guy's gone. He's buried behind DeAndre Swift now. I really think he is the real MVP for this team this year. He is going to be dominant running back, tons of touchdowns. I love Aaron Jones.
I don't know. The likes for me are still. I think they play in a nice stadium. That's about it. I got nothing. I'm not a cheesehead fan at the moment.
I'll second your opinion on Aaron Jones. It's fantastic. As you and I saw, or I guess all three of us saw in last year's draft, fantasy football draft, that is very underrated. Even there, wouldn't you guys agree? I mean, it's just an afterthought.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I wrote down Aaron Rodgers, of course, 4,299 yards, 48 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. Overall, the team ranked first in scoring at 31.5 points per game. I think they take a big step back. I think that things have been
testy,
stirred maybe a little too much in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Which leads to maybe some dislikes. You want to?
Well, for me, it's the negativity surrounding the team. Is it going to be a distraction? There's going to be a lot of media talk, a lot of questions that people aren't going to want to answer. I just don't think it's going to be a good atmosphere to be trying to build a winning program this year.
I question that too, Blake. But then I also on the other side, I was wondering that, or is it the revenge year top number 2 for Aaron Rodgers? Did he come back out and do it again? I don't know. I couldn't decide which way to go on that.
I mean, the a-hole in me thinks that it could be the latter, that it could be one of those Aaron Rodgers just, stick his middle finger up to the NFL and the world. I would think that he's got his wide receivers on board, right, Parker? I mean,
scorched earth and just goes for 50+ touchdowns.
It literally could be. I didn't like his interviews. I mean, that's what I wrote down. I don't like how he talked about the team. I don't like how he talked about the city. I don't like that they had a home playoff loss. Maybe I don't like how they were coaching at the end of that game. I think they take a step back, but not too far back. So I've got them winning the division at 11-6.
Yeah, I don't even know how to call this one, honestly, because I'm with you. I don't know if does Aaron Rodgers, like you said, does he just shove this year and say, on the way out, say F you here, look at what you're going to be missing, kind of thing. I don't know. I'm almost a push on this one. I really am.
So you're probably going right in the middle.
I am.
8 or 9.
I am.
All
I'm thinking like 9 wins.
What do you think,
8 or 9
Parker?
wins.
You actually touched on my major dislike, and that was decision making. Matt LaFleur makes bad decisions.
Yeah.
Green Bay should be the Super Bowl champions. Matt LaFleur single-handedly lost that game with how he called it.
Yeah.
I think Rodgers bails him out so much that
Yeah.
Rodgers may actually swing that team 5 or 6 games. Usually you talk about a player affecting a point spread by, a point or two, a couple of points. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, if there's a different quarterback playing there, they win 5-6 games. And I think he's a different kind of cat. I think he does respond to this me against the world type thing. I think he comes out, goes scorched earth. I think they go 12-5.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it feels like it's on the brink.
Yeah.
It could go either way.
Yeah. It's definitely it's teeter-tottering for sure.
Yeah. And finally, the Minnesota Vikings. Last year they went 7-9. What I like about the team is my fantasy football keeper, Dalvin Cook. Last year he had 1,557 yards rushing, another 361 receiving, 17 total touchdowns. Thank you, Dalvin Cook. But I also want to touch on the receivers as well. It's like I'm not giving any credit to the quarterback here, but I'm going to talk about the receivers. Justin Jefferson, my gosh, 1,400 yards, 7 TDs. Even Adam Thielen, 14 touchdowns. Holy moly. What do you got, Lee?
I mean, what is there not to like about Dalvin Cook? I mean, him and Justin Jefferson, I mean, it's been good grief. Like you said, they've got some offensive punch there. I think it's hard not to like kind of the setup they have there.
Bradley, you set me up perfectly for this. You mentioned Dalvin Cook. You mentioned the receivers. I want to come in at you blindly and say, you know what? I'm going to give you your quarterback. He's going to throw for 4,300 yards, 68% passing completion, have the second highest in yards per attempt, and 35 touchdowns. Everybody in the league would blindly sign up and take that guy immediately.
Hell yeah, they would.
And that guy is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins might be the most underrated player in the NFL.
I mean, I admitted it. I said, look, I'm talking about all this offense, but I'm not even talking about the quarterback.
He reminds me a lot of Tannehill. It's because he doesn't have to do much. When you throw it 24 times a game or whatever, there's not a whole lot of thought to it. He's just super efficient.
Yeah, not a lot of flash,
I don't need my quarterback to flash. I want the skill players to flash.
Well, that's kind of what they have there. And I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't have a lot of dislikes there. I mean,
I do have one big dislike. And
all right, start us off. Let's go.
And this is a lot like, Bradley, you love defense.
Oh,
Mike
don't.
Zimmer's
You just wait for it. Yeah.
He's a defensive coach. And last year, how many sacks they had? 23. You can luck into 23 sacks. The Titans were historically bad and had 19. I mean, they weren't that much better. They think they've got it figured out on the defensive line there. I won't believe it till I see it. I really think this defense could be questionable. Defense.
That's what I dislike as well. Listen to this. 13 games, 13 out of 16, allowing 23 or more points. They can't get to the quarterback, as Parker mentioned. Even the head coach said this was the worst defense he's ever seen.
It's hard to argue with those stats. It's going to be something to look out for sure.
They've got to, I mean, even if they just tighten it down a little bit. I mean, they even brought in Yannick Ngakoue. Nothing.
Did you just say for them to tighten up?
They need to do something.
Okay. Just saying.
I mean, guys, because I believe me, both of you, I want to put this team at number 1. I'm not going to believe it until I see it either. I'm going right in the middle of the road, 9-8, second place in the division.
I've got them checking in at second place in the division at 10-7. Looking at their schedule, though, man, it's got an easy start. Bengals, Cardinals, and they got the Seahawks and Browns, but then the Lions and Panthers.
Yeah, I see them going 500 in that stretch.
I'm going to be the oddball out here. I'm going to say that this is the year that Aaron Rodgers shits the bed, or on purpose or otherwise, and this is the year that Minnesota takes him over with 10 wins.
Boom. All right.
Very nice.
I like it. Well, that was our NFC North. We're going to move on to the AFC North, starting in the great state of Ohio. The Cincinnati Bengals last year were 4-11-1. I like Joe Burrow, quarterback. I'm concerned about the injury thing, but we'll see. Last year, before getting hurt, 2,688 yards, 13 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He was on pace for 4,000. To find a franchise quarterback in the NFL has proven not to be easy. I am going to go out and say the Bengals have it. I like their quarterback situation.
Yeah, I think they have look, I think Joe Burrow is a rising star. Like you mentioned the yards, the touchdown to interception ratio. It's on pace for 4,500 yards and 26 touchdowns. I mean, got Joe Mixon behind him, Jamar Chase. I mean, the offense could be pretty explosive, but I won't get into my concerns here yet, but that injury concerns me, coming back from that type of injury.
Y'all, they may have a franchise quarterback, but to have a franchise quarterback, you've got to have franchise receivers, and they do. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd might be a top 3 trio in the league. I know everyone is talking about Chase reuniting with his college quarterback this year, but my favorite is actually T. Higgins. And if Burrow doesn't get hurt last year, we're talking about Higgins and not Justin Jefferson having an all-time rookie season.
Yeah, I could see that. So I'm going to start with the dislikes. I'm not in love with the Cincinnati Bengals defense. I mean, it's like I want to say that.
Change.
It's like I want to say the thing,
grief.
say the same thing over and over and over. But look, man, when your defense allows 389 yards per game, 26.5 points per game, questionable at best. That's pretty bad. And gentlemen, they face one of the toughest schedules this year in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Bradley. I mean, the problem is their defense is so bad that it's going to ask Joe Burrow to do a lot. And coming off of what was a devastating, and for a lot of people, it is a career-ending injury. I mean, that knee injury was about as horrific as it gets as far as for quarterbacks. And I mean, it's just kind of, dude, he plays for the Bengals. I mean, come on. I mean, again, another team. He's in the state of Ohio. I know he's from Ohio, all that crap. I love Joe Burrow. I hate the team he plays for. I think his defense is going to put him in a situation where he's going to have to force things. And I really wish he played just about anywhere other than a team from the state of Ohio.
The worst person on this team won't touch the football on the field, and that's the coach. Zach Taylor is going to be the first coach to be fired this year. He's 25-1 during his first 2 seasons, and he's won back-to-back games once. This is one of those guys that got hired because he washed McVay's pajamas one time. I mean, he was a nobody in Miami. He got fired. McVay picked him up, and he was like a wide receiver coach for the Rams for a couple of years. And then he gets a head coaching job. I don't really understand it. Former NFL executive Michael Lombardi had some brutal words about Taylor. He says, quote, "Zach's not qualified to be head coach of the team. I'm not sure Zach Taylor's qualified to be the head coach of the University of Cincinnati, let alone the Bengals. He's demonstrated nothing in terms of managing the team and managing the game," end quote.
Damn!
That was a blast.
Wow. Ouch.
5-12.
5-12. Surprisingly, I've still got these guys winning 8 games.
I'm going 6-11 in last place in the division.
Yeah, I still think they're last.
All right, we're going to stay in the great state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
The Cleveland Browns last year, 11-5, won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Blake, what do you like about the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, again, here we go with another Ohio team, the Browns. I guess if you want to say that they have a nice core of players coming back, I mean, not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan in the world. I'm not even the biggest Odell Beckham Jr. guy, but I mean, but they have a core of folks that I guess that might play well together, just given the amount of time they've been together. But I am I'm trying to stay away from the negative here, and I'm failing here
Good.
just because I'm not a huge state of Ohio football fan.
We'll pass it to Parker then. What do you like about the Browns?
Well, we all love quarterbacks and the flash and all this stuff. That's what gets you to the big games. But what wins you the big games is, as we watched in the last Super Bowls, offensive line and defensive line. And Cleveland Browns have got a fantastic offensive line. All the starters are coming back. Last year, they were rated as the top pass blocking line and the second best run blocking line. And if someone gets hurt, they have 2 backups that would start for almost any other team in the league.
All right. Well, then you set me up well because I like their running back duo behind the offensive line. Their rushing attack was 3rd in the NFL last year, led by Nick Chubb, 1,067 yards and 12 touchdowns. But don't forget, Kareem Hunt, 841 yards and 6 additional touchdowns. I love running the ball. I love offensive linemen. Those 2 are my big likes about this team.
Okay.
Chubb may be the best pure running back in the NFL.
Hey, name to
Can't
remember
argue that.
coming later in this draft. Blake,
Can't argue
go ahead with your dislikes.
I'm going to go with Odell Beckham Jr. I'm really concerned. Is he going to be able to come back after his knee injury and really be in form? Is he going to be focused? I mean, Odell Beckham there's always been a maturity kind of focus. Does he have the focus to be able to really take the big leap and bound in his career? I doubt it. I don't think he's going to do it this year. I don't think he's going to be a big splash for them this year as far as their offense. But anyways, that and they play in the state of Ohio.
On to Parker.
People think this guy's really great because of cute little commercials. But if I purely gave you his numbers, I think everybody would agree.
Oh, I know where this
Baker
is going.
Mayfield is terrible too.
I was like, protect this house.
Baker Mayfield is one of the worst starting quarterbacks on a good team in the league. And part of the reason why I say that is part of the reason why I like the team. They've got one of the best pass blocking line in the league, yet they've got a guy that had the same amount of passing touchdowns or less than Lamar Jackson and Derek Carr. His passing percentage, he's barely above Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins. And I'm tired of hearing this stupid argument. They've done it for Marcus Mariota. They've done it for a ton of people. Oh, he's got a different play caller every year. Well, he's got a different play caller every year because you stink.
Yep.
I know he's got a coach of the year. He looked better in the second half of the year. According to Pro Football Focus last year, he's one of 4 quarterbacks with the most negatively graded plays. Just a statistic saying he stinks. He's thin-skinned. He can't take criticisms. If the Cleveland Browns traded for Deshaun Watson today, they would be my Super Bowl pick.
Ooh. Wow.
Wow, you think more
Write
of
it
Deshaun
down.
Watson than I do.
Write
But-
it down.
It's not going to happen. They're going to be 11-6.
Well, here's what I don't like. Their defense.
Yeah, what do you know?
It's I should say mostly on defense. Look, their secondary is rebuilding. Last year was just awful. On 3rd down, they gave up 45%. 8th worst. We'll talk about some worse teams in other podcasts. But what do they got? Myles Garrett and what? That's my concern is defense. You're going to have to play the Ravens in this division. You're going to have to play a tougher schedule because going 11-5 last year, that's what you've earned this year is a tougher schedule. I say they regress. I'm going 9-8.
Yep, I've got them at 9-8 as well, and finishing 3rd in the division.
3rd, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Parker, any final thoughts? Are we good?
We're good, 11-6, and I will hold to where I think they'll finish on this division.
All right.
Okay.
We're going to move on to the Baltimore Ravens. Last year, they were 11-5. I'll go ahead and start.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what I like? I like their defense. Their defense was 2nd in points allowed and 7th in yards allowed. Not only do I like their defensive makeup, I can't believe I'm saying this. I think my older brother would hate me for saying this. I kind of like their quarterback. I like Lamar Jackson. 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 1,005 yards rushing, additional 7 touchdowns. And maybe that's what the coaching staff and their offensive philosophy wants. And he's able to provide maybe better than anyone else that kind of run pass Vince Young-esque offense. He's clearly way better than Vince Young ever was with the Titans. But my 2 likes, their defensive makeup and the quarterback.
You're right, by the way. Your brother would burn you over the coals for that thing.
He would hate it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I think I like the fact that they ended the season last year with 5 straight wins. They added Sammy Watkins. I think this is a team that rides momentum. And part of it, I think, has to do with their quarterback because he's a bit of a powder, but we'll get into that in my dislikes here in just a second.
All right.
But yeah, I think this is a team that if they can get a spark going, that they will be able to ride some momentum through a good part of the season.
I do like their defense as well. They did, as you know, lose a really good defensive line coach in Joel Cullen.
Where did he go, Parker?
I don't know. Somewhere in the AFC South. We may talk about that in a
minute.
But they do have an offense capable of scoring 30-plus a game. You could talk about their elite rushing ability, but I'm going to go with something Bradley went on a previous podcast. I'm going kicker. In the history of the NFL Hall of Fame, there are only 2 kickers in it, and the Ravens have a future Hall of Fame kicker on their roster. Justin Tucker has made around 91% of his kicks. He is the most accurate kicker in the history of the league. And that's what the Ravens sending him out for these insane, crazy kicks. Last year, they sent him out 5 times for a field goal longer than 61 yards. We take kicker for granted for almost 15 years as a Titans fan. I just assumed you would make these kicks. You don't. But the Ravens have got one of those guys. Justin Tucker, he comes out on the field, and they're getting 3 points.
It's an underrated weapon.
It is. It's not talked about enough.
I like it. You want to lead off with the dislikes?
So yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Not a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I know you mentioned his passing yards last year, but the problem is that they went down last year from a year over year. 2019 he was 3,127 yards, and last year he's 2,757. His touchdowns went from 36 to 26. So that stat that you brought up about the touchdown to interception ratio, he only had 6 interceptions in 2019, and he had 9 last year. So that actually got worse too. Was it an outlier last year, or is this yet another example of NFL defenses being able to figure out yet another gimmick quarterback? I think so.
Not only do I not like Lamar Jackson, I don't like the wide receivers. Hollywood Brown isn't an alpha. He's not number 1. He's a complimentary piece. Mm-hmm. Sammy Watkins is always really good the first game of the year, and then he disappears. Either stinks or he gets hurt. I think the best receiver on this team is Rashad Bateman. And almost all their pass catchers, including Bateman, are going to be out for some time. This isn't good for a quarterback that isn't the most accurate. Last year, the Ravens were dead last in passing offense. And I don't expect that to change this year.
I'd argue that their best receivers are tight end, Mark Andrews. Mm-hmm. I think they really wanted Julio Jones, which the Titans got instead. I dislike that they're having to revamp their offensive line. They traded away Orlando Brown Jr. Their all-pro tackle Ronnie Stanley's coming back from a fractured and dislocated ankle.
Which is a huge injury to come back from, by the way.
But
particularly for a big fat guy.
Man, that's what I feel like that's the nucleus of what this team needs to be.
That's their identity, right?
Is the offensive line, much like what we discussed in Cleveland. They need the big dudes to be able to open up lanes for the third running back, Lamar Jackson. Yeah. I'll just call it. When you have over 1,000 yards rushing as a quarterback, you're a running back too.
Exactly.
So I don't like it that they're having to revamp there. That's a big concern for me. But you want to start with the predictions part?
Yeah, I'm going to say that even though I don't really care that much for Lamar Jackson, I don't consider this to be that, I mean, it's a competitive division amongst themselves, but I don't think it's a particularly strong division. I think they're going to get 10 wins.
What do you think, Parker?
I've got them going 11-6, coming in second in this division.
Wow.
All right. So I love defense. I put Lamar Jackson in the plus category, even though stats show potential regression. I don't like their wide receivers. I do like their tight end. I'm scared about the offensive line. But when I take a step back and I look at the rest of this division, I think I like the Ravens the best. I'm going 12-5.
Oh, okay.
Their style of play wins games. They've got a great coach. I mean, that easily could happen.
Yeah. And maybe even special teams, as Parker mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean,
that'll win you some games.
For granted. I mean, I'm not talking about just the kicker, which is fantastic. I'm talking about the punting game, return game, underrated.
Yeah. It will not. It may not lose many games, but it'll definitely win you some games for sure.
Yeah. You don't realize how important special teams is until your special teams is bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it stands out.
Ask anybody in Nashville. We know.
Yes.
We know.
All right. Finally, in the AFC North, the division winners last year, 12-4, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe I like their defensive makeup. I wrote this kind of with a question mark. Statistically, they were third in yards allowed per game and points per game with 19.5 points per game. But I wrote it with a question mark because I don't know if I trust it. I still put it in my like category. I don't know. What do you think, Blake?
I like Najee Harris. They drafted him 24th overall. I mean, he was a good running back in college. I think he could be a pretty good NFL running back. Juju, I like Juju a lot. They re-signed him. Big Ben, it's kind of, I don't know. We'll get into him here in a little bit. We'll see. I mean, there are some bright spots for sure. I mean, like you said, their defense is, I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion about them.
Maybe Parker's got some info on them.
Not to start off negative, but last year's 12-14 was the most fraudulent 12-14.
Wasn't it though? What is it? Did they start 11-0? I didn't write that.
They started 11-0.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
They 1-4.
Fraudulent. I like that word.
Absolutely fraudulent. And the defense, it was good last year, but they lost. They lost Bud Dupree, which is going to be a huge loss for them. I know they got T.J. Watt, but when Bud was off the field, T.J.'s Watt pressure rate dropped. I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like he was in the backfield 19% of the time, and when it was just Watt out there, it was like 8% of the time. It's a major, major downfall. But what I do love about their defense is Minkah Fitzpatrick, their safety. He has played 30 games with the Steelers. Listen to this stat. In those 30 games he's had with the Steelers, he's had 9 interceptions and 14 total takeaways and 3 defensive touchdowns. He did all this while in those 30 games only being targeted 51 times. This guy might be the best safety in football. Coach knows how to use him. I really, really like him.
Nice. That makes me jealous. Sounds really good. I wish some other teams had to play a ball like that. I'm going to go with some dislikes, though.
Yep.
I don't like the situation going on with their offensive line, gentlemen. Their run game last year was absolutely the worst. Mm-hmm. They've lost tackle, a guard, center, all in just this one-off season, folks. Rebuild can be tough, especially with the big dudes. I'd rather have a team that has some consistency along both lines, offensive and defensive line. So whenever I'm thinking about their rookie Najee Harris, I want to like him, but I got to temper that expectation because I don't know what the hell's blocking in front of me.
Yeah, I think their rushing attack is a really big question mark this year because of those reasons you just mentioned. I mean, their offensive line, it's kind of surprising to me that they would try to do some kind of rebuild with Ben Roethlisberger being at his age. I mean, you would think you would want a little more consistency so that you could have a little bit more consistency at the running back position as far as the running attack, that is. I don't know also that given all this that Ben is going to have a great season. I think a lot of his plays are, one or two steps and get the ball out. And I think some defenses are probably going to key into that, and they're going to double down on Juju. They're going to make him try to run the ball. And I don't know that they can do it with the personnel that they've acquired in this offseason.
I know they lost a lot of their offensive line, but as bad as they were at the run game last year, historically bad, that may not be a bad thing. They get new people in there, but this team, it kind of steals an argument from me in the NFC South. I don't know what they're trying to do. It feels to me like this team should be rebuilding, but they're not rebuilding. Like they've got an old, aging quarterback who I've never been a fan of. Mm-hmm. They've got some. But then they've got an offensive line that's not great. They've got some older defensive players now. But then they go out and they draft a rookie in the running back in the first round, which I never agree with. And they're doing these things where they're like, we're rebuilding, but we're not rebuilding. So I'm kind of confused about what they're doing. But my main dislike for this team is Big Ben. I could go through a million different stats about how he wasn't good last year, but the one that stands out to me is the Steelers passed the third most in the league, but they had the 15th most passing yards. Big Ben was rated as the 25th best quarterback last year. He's over the hill. I think this team could potentially major underperform, end up trying to trade up and really go after one of these Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell, big-time quarterback prospects next year, because they don't have their quarterback for next year on this roster.
Yeah, it's time. It's time for them to move away from Ben Roethlisberger, I think, at this point. And I think this season is going to be kind of the tip of the iceberg for the catalyst for all that to happen.
I believe they're stuck in the middle. Major regression here, going from 12 wins. I'm predicting 9-8 and no postseason.
I'm going 9-8 as well.
8-9.
8-9.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, go ahead, Park.
I was just saying, and with my tiebreaker, I do have Cleveland winning this division.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, as I was going to say, ladies and gentlemen, this was our NFC North and AFC North prediction show here in 2021. Any final just thoughts to recap what we've just talked about here out of the North?
I don't know that there's anybody that really stands out that much to me. I mean, obviously, Green Bay could have a big year potentially. The Ravens, I'm not very bullish on the Ravens. I think Ben is going to start to regress big time too. So, and everybody in the state of Ohio is terrible. So,
what do you got to recap, Park?
I think of both of these divisions we just broke down, the team with the biggest variance in it's Chicago Bears. I could see them winning 5 games. I could see them winning 11 games. It depends on when they start Justin Fields. How good is he? They've got some other great receivers there other than Allen Robinson that really could step up. Mooney. Does Montgomery have a year like he did last year? The Bears are really tough for me to predict. That's kind of why I went right there in the middle of their win total that I thought. I could see that one going anywhere. And as far as the AFC North, it's kind of the same with Baltimore and Cincinnati, or not Cincinnati, Baltimore and Cleveland. I think they could jump up and get a lot of wins, or Baker could stink and they could win hardly anything.
Yeah. So my recap: I want Joe Burrow to be healthy. I want to see him play every game. I just want to see it just for him. And if I could blend the two purple teams. If I could blend the offense of the Vikings with the defense of the Ravens, I think I might be onto something.
Yeah, whenever you figure out how to make that happen, you just let me know.
That's all we have for the North, though. Thank you guys again for taking the time to hit play.
Yep, we'll put our records up and our rankings and who we all think is going to win each respective division. We welcome you guys to check us out on Twitter at _dad_code, as well as on Instagram at the Dad Code Podcast, Facebook at the Dad Code. Email us questions, concerns, comments. Everybody from the state of Ohio can call and cuss me out. or it's not call. God, no, that wouldn't be good for YouTube. You could email me at thedadgoodpodcast@gmail.com.
I'll warn everyone, stay tuned for the next one. We're going to the South. Electricity, thunder, lightning will be all around us when we get to the AFC South. These two have been wanting to talk about my team for a long time, and it's coming.
All right, guys, y'all be well.